Welcome back to this new episode on emotional health. In the previous episode, we had seen how distress produces psychosomatic diseases, and we had also seen various measures that we usually use to deal with these effects. We had concluded with the inlet in the tank which we need to close. Today we are going to see what is this inlet. To illustrate that, let me give an analogy. Suppose I have a stone in my hand, I throw it against the glass window pane. Then what will happen? It will break. Now what was responsible for the breaking of the glass? The stone. But the same stone, if I throw it at the wall, will it break? No. Why not?
Because it's like stronger.
Strong. Whereas the glass was fragile. So the real cause for the breaking of the glass was not the stone, but its inherent weakness, which we overlook and keep on blaming the stone. In the same manner, stones or stressors are bound to be there in our lives. But if we are fragile, if we are weak like the glass, then we break under the impact of it, develop distress. And rather than trying to remove the stones from our lives, we have to focus upon removing this inherent weakness which makes us susceptible to these external stressors and cultivating the resilience of the wall. Then let there be any number of stressors, you are not going to break down. And once you don't break down, the effects of that breakdown are not going to occur. So now let us identify what is that weakness within us which makes us susceptible to become distressed whenever we confront stressors in life. Rather than trying to change others, we have to change ourselves. That does not mean that others are right and you are wrong. Even if others are wrong, if you don't want to suffer from that wrongdoing, you will have to become strong like the wall. For that, we'll have to first consider the composition of the human being to identify this weakness. So, if we don't know this difference, then what will happen? We will try to always correct the environment, leading to conflicts. Even before we can correct ourselves, we should know what is changeable in us and what is not changeable in us. Because if we do not know the difference, we will try to change the non-changeable component and all the efforts would be futile. This non-changeable component is our nature, which comprises of our physical features, mental abilities and personality trait. Details we shall see a little later. But they are not changeable because they are inborn, they are innate. The changeable component in us is our beliefs, our values. And they are changeable because they are not inborn, but they are acquired. Acquired by nurture. What values were inculcated in us by the parents, the other family members, by the teachers, by the peers, what we learned by personal experience. Yeah?
Does that mean whatever we are getting, as a teachings from parents or something is a wrong?
Could be.
But that is what we say makes us, to lead a good life and be a good human being.
True. That is their intention. However, it many times results in blind leading the blind. When they themselves do not have the proper outlook to life, they are going to impart to you what is available to them, which itself may be faulty.
So how does one know what is right?
So for that, first we have to identify the inner cause which makes us disturbed. In a state of emotional equilibrium, not only would you know what is right, but also your responses would be right. So it's a prerequisite before you can come to know. Till then, mind you, all children are ignorant. They are perforce have to accept whatever is taught to them by their caregivers. But once they become more self-dependent, there is a revision of what is taught to them on the basis of their personal experience. And this usually tends to occur around the time of puberty, where they are more self-dependent and therefore not being dependent on the parents. And that leads to what we call adolescent adjustment disorder. Most parents complain that this child of ours was so obedient and now he has become so rebellious because of the revision of the values that they had taught you. Not necessarily that the values now you are cultivating on the basis of your experience are proper. It may be, it may not be.
So whatever we see in teenager, the problem of those grown-up adolescents is basically conflict between parents' value system or parents' belief system and children their own belief system and value system.
True.
But both are wrong.
Could be.
Could be.
That has to be assessed in individual case.
So that is more on their experiences, like more than the
Correct.
beliefs and all.
The revision that is taking
yeah,
place is on the basis of experience.
experiences. Yeah.
What they find more appealing, they will value more. Now, the parents have inculcated values based on their nature.
Yeah, nature. and experience.
The child may have a different nature
True.
from the parents, and therefore what appeals to them will be different.
A great insight, sir, here. I think the reason why we feel some children are good and obedient, I mean, even when they are grown up, maybe having the same nature as per parents.
Yeah.
True.
The some children whom we feel are rebellious or they have changed, they have a different nature than parents.
Correct. So if the natures match, they will continue to adhere to the values inculcated by the parents.
And also it's important to know that nature can't be changed.
True.
That is also.
So, we have two components, the inborn nature and acquired beliefs. There are synonyms to this belief system. Call it values, call it paradigm, call it point of view, call it your frame of reference,
Programming,
conditioning.
conditioning.
All these are synonyms to our belief system. What is the relationship between the two? It's a relationship of container and content. Say you have a vessel, you pour milk in it, remove the milk, put water, remove the water, put buttermilk. The vessel remains the same, the contents keep on changing. So our nature is like the vessel. That remains the same from womb to tomb. What changes are the contents, our beliefs, our values. And that is what we are going to focus upon. Say what nature you had 5 years back, 10 years back, 15 years back is the same today. But what values you had 6 months back, 2 years back, 4 years back, they have changed.
Sir, sometimes we say some person has an angry nature.
Hmm.
But then after some time that angry nature is not there, now he is very calm and cool. Then how does that happen?
We confuse between nature, beliefs and emotions. The anger is the emotions. It's not a nature.
Okay.
But because the person is more prone to anger, time and again, we call it angry nature. Now, though this nature is inborn, it is not apparent at the time of birth because it is still in the seed form. Like the entire tree is contained in the seed. But when we see the seed, do we see the tree? No. It's only when we sow the seed and the tree grows from it that you know that the entire tree has come from that small seed. So also our nature at the time of birth is in the form of a seed. And as we grow, it unfolds. So during growth, two processes are taking place simultaneously. One is the unfoldment of nature, the other is introjection of values. Now, let us say we have sown a mango seed. Then what tree will grow from that?
Mango.
Mango. And what fruits you will get from that?
Mangoes.
Now, from that mango tree, you start expecting, say, apples or bananas or chickus or oranges. What will happen? Will you get what you want?
No.
And when you don't get what you want, what happens to you?
Distress.
You are
Yes.
distressed, you are disturbed,
Upset.
or you are upset. And whom do you blame for that upset?
The child.
The tree.
The tree. So now what we do? We try to improve the tree. We water it more often, supply more fertilizer, do some trimming, all in the hope of getting a chosen fruit. But despite your best possible efforts, that stupid tree refuses to change. So again, what happens to you?
More
Distress.
frustration.
More frustration, irritation, anger. Ki after all that I have done for it, it is still same. Again, whom do you blame for that frustration? The tree. Now, in reality, in actuality, is that tree responsible for your disturbance?
No.
Then what is?
Our
They are
expectations.
having expectations.
Our own
Wrong
expectations.
expectations.
And what type of expectations? Those which are not in keeping with reality. The reality is,
Impossible.
it's a mango tree. Your expectations are for apples or chickus or oranges or bananas or whatever. So these unrealistic expectations constitute our inner weakness, which makes us susceptible to get disturbed whenever we face stressors in life. And rather than trying to manipulate the environment to fit it into our expectations, what we need to do is detect these unrealistic expectations, get rid of them, and come to terms with reality, however unpalatable it may be.
Does that mean, sir, we can have realistic expectations?
Yes,
What will be the difference between realistic expectations and unrealistic
Unrealistic, yeah.
expectations?
the realistic expectations, you are accepting the reality as it is, whether it suits you or not. In unrealistic expectation, you are not accepting the reality. You want the reality to change to suit you.
So example what you have given from that, we can say that if we are expecting mangoes from that mango tree, that is realistic expectation,
Yes.
that is okay.
True?
But if we are expecting either oranges or bananas or apple, those are unrealistic expectations
True.
and we have to remove those.
Yes. Again, mind you, I want a sweet mango. This is a sour mango.
Right.
Or I want this type of mango and this is this type of mango. Again, unrealistic.
Right. So whatever it is,
Accept.
accept.
Accept the reality as it is.
Okay.
And don't try to fit it into what you wish it to be.
So recently, I was
So-
at my sister's place. Just to give you an example, she was getting very disturbed and upset, like with her grandchild, who's hyperactive, ADHD, like running around all over. Like. And the more he was running around, the more she was getting disturbed. And somebody was saying, "But that's the way he is, like so just leave it, like accept him the way he is. You're not going to change him. He's not going to change, like." So that knowledge we should have, like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Correct. And of course, this is a medical condition. So that needs to be treated
Addressed,
with
yeah.
medication. Just because you have accepted the reality as it is, that only ensures your emotional equilibrium.
Not the child's.
But now you have to give an appropriate response to deal with the situation. But this time you're dealing it without getting upset.
Upset.
So the response is going to be appropriate one and not the
What is-
inappropriate which we talked about earlier. When we are disturbed and express our disturbance, We saw it leads to conflict. When we are disturbed inside and we don't express it, we suppress it, then it leads to ailment. When you are emotionally stable, even then you may perform the same action which appears to as if you are expressing your emotional disturbance. To give an example, say when you are angry, you express the anger, it leads to conflicts. When you are angry, you suppress the anger, it will lead to illness. Now, after you give up your unrealistic beliefs, you're not going to be angry. But that does not mean that you will not deal with the situation. You will give the appropriate response. And that response may appear similar to the expression. Why? Because that now you're using as a technique, as a tactic. So you may have to make a show of anger. It is a sham anger. You know that that is the behavior that is required to bring about the necessary changes. What is the difference between the two? When you're expressing your anger, you're not in control. You may overdo it. Not only that, if two other people come on the scene, then they will be also caught in the crossfire. When you are making a show of anger, you are not going to overdo it. And if others come on the scene, you are going to behave differently with those other people. So, the appropriate responses is not going to complicate matters. However, even after you give the response, you may not necessarily get the desired result. To explain that, let us say this is an object and a force is acting on this in this manner. Where will the object go? In the direction of the force. And to what extent?
To the extent
To the extent of the force. Suppose another force is acting on it in this manner, then where will it go? In this direction, to the extent of the force. Now, if both the forces are acting simultaneously, where will it go? The resultant of the two. And how do you get the resultant? By drawing the parallelogram representing the two forces and taking the diagonal. Now let's say instead of two forces, there are 10 different forces coming from various directions. Then where will it go?
The resultant.
In the resultant of all these forces. Suppose the resultant is 0. The forces cancel out each other. Then what will happen?
It won't move.
It won't move. Now, this is our objective. And we put our effort, expecting these results. But just because we have put in the requisite effort, we do not necessarily get the desired result, because there are many other forces which are simultaneously acting on it and over which we have no control whatsoever. Does it mean that we give up our effort? No. That is the only force at our command. We have to persist in the effort but not insist on the result. The effort is in our hand, the result is never in our hand. Unfortunately, what happens, whenever we put in the effort, our eye is always on the result. That effectively reduces our effort. Let us demonstrate that with the help of a graph. If you draw a graph with concern on the x-axis and performance on the y-axis. Suppose there is no concern for the activity, then there is going to be no performance. There is slight concern, there is slight performance. Still more concern, still more performance, still more concern, still more performance. But up to a level. It is not a linear relationship like this. The more the concern, more the effort. After a certain limit, if the concern increases, the performance reduces. It increases further, the performance will reduce still further, till a time comes when you are so over concerned that you cannot perform at all. Like there are many bright students who have studied the whole year, they know everything, but when the exams approach, they become tensed and are not able to perform. The relationship between concern and performance is that of inverted U shape. People who are here are careless. People who are here are cautious. People who are here are carefree. So we have to be neither careless nor over careful. We have to be carefree. So, while giving this appropriate response, we need to control our nature. What is this self control? We shall see in the next episode.